and shalom and basically howdy, folks. How are you today? Hope things are going well for everybody. I hope that you guys have had an experiential week of seeing the different kinds of realities and truths that are coming out of many of the pieces. It's quite amazing to me how many things are actually syncing up and so I hope that you're in the journey of your enlightenment, that you are beginning to see some. Unfortunately, we don't always get to see what we feel like we need to see, and I think there's a protection level there for us as well. Maybe sometimes the things that we want to see, we're just not prepared for yet. And so the good news is that no matter where you're at, there's further to go. Whether you can see a lot, whether you are as the prophets of the Bible who were seers, they were able to go into other planes in their mind, or whether you haven't yet arrived at that state, or you're somewhere in between, then it's a worthwhile journey, and it's amazing how much truth is coming out, and how much it really makes the picture a lot clearer. So today I hope you guys aren't being bored with this naked Bible. Here's my rationale for continuing the path that I've been on, and as I told you in the get-go, I have no clue how far I will go in this. My intent was never to sit down and read the book to you, although that's not a bad thing to do. It just was not my intent. My intent was hopefully to wet your whistle, so much so that you would go buy the book and read it as you could, where you could embrace and deal with the truths that he's going to expose to us. The universe, the cosmos, really is trying to give to people an opportunity, and I think I can safely say this is, I don't know necessarily that it's a once in a lifetime offer, but I do think that it's a very special offer that's being given to people at this time in which we live in. There just is so much going on so many different levels, from the immense amount of disinformation, if I use one of their terms that they love to throw around, which really means I'm lying to you, but I want you to think somebody else is. And I don't use it in that context. I don't believe that I'm lying to you. In fact, I believe I'm exposing the truth that many of you may have seen on your own, and then others might not have seen it at all. And so we're going to continue on. The chapter in the Naked Bible that we're going to look at tonight, or today, is called Controlling the Past to Mortgage the Future. And in light of the statement that I made on Saturday, that I was quite surprised that no one had attempted to shoot Donald Trump, only to find out while I had said those words that it happened. I don't know if you guys have grabbed the ramifications of that. When I tell you everything is spiritual and there is no coincidence, I didn't say that coincidentally, and neither did that happen. We have to recognize where we are in the point in time. We have multiple things going on. We have the enlightenment of finding out that we are a greater being, that we are spirit in a purest form inside of us. We're finding out that this part of the Bible, and thank you to all of those people who follow Yahweh, who are trying to correct me in the greater way. I've been there, done that, and given many certificates to people for following that, okay? I probably know the scriptures as well as you do, if not better, okay? I'm not saying words because I'm exposing to people the truth, and that's difficult because they supposed that what they had was the truth. You understand how that works? And so I appreciate it. I certainly I certainly am not, if you want to, offended by the reality that somebody wants me to talk about prophecies. I think I've been very vocal about my view on the mass majority of everything that has to do with the Bible. If you want to believe it literally, by all means, knock yourself out. You're welcome to drink the wassail and wait for Santa Claus to come down with 6 pound 7 ounce baby Jesus in his hands. I don't care what you do; that's your business. But if you want to be corrupt, then just and if you want purity, then that's something that has to be sought for. And I don't really care what the truth is. Honestly, it doesn't make me any difference. If the Torah is not the truth, then let's don't follow it, right? It's that simple. Let's don't follow it. If it's exposed that it's not true. And so, as I always have been, I coined that word for myself, is that I am a truth seeker. And once I recognized that, then I also accepted the responsibility that my desire isn't about anybody's agenda. I don't care about the Christian agenda. I don't care about the Islamic agenda. I don't care about Hinduism's agenda. But I'm also a very open-minded person, and we all must be. Not that I've always been, but because usually I've been about as closed-minded as they come. But the reality of it is that until I stepped out of Christianity and its stronghold, all that was laying here, and I'm going to show you by the end of the day that many of this pieces have been are 3,000 and 4,000 years old, much older than the lie of Judaism, and the lie of the Torah was concocted, and that's the 5,000 year creation, and the whole smell of it is all corrupt. And so I'm going to continue my journey, and anyone who wants to come along with me, I'd be just as tickled as could be to find out who are we really, and what is it that life is really all about. I think that's a very worthwhile journey. Will I ever attain? Not fully, but I certainly will end my life in a much better state than I started my life if I could. And so I think that's about the most that we can hope for, is that we become as close to who we really are as we possibly can during the time that we're given. Whether that be short or whether that be long is not really up to us. So we're going to look at controlling the past to mortgage the future. I want to sow these seeds to you also. It's a really perfect place, and it's one of the key things what's gone on in the last week with all this Trump stuff from the left-wing progressive liberal people and their narratives that it's a good thing that somebody shot at Donald Trump, to the reality that I'm quite sure that they wouldn't feel quite so well if somebody was shooting at them. And in the realm of love, which is really where we need to throw away all religion, okay? We need to get rid of every bit of it. We need to cleanse it and purge it from the earth and from our worlds. That's not going to happen, so we then have to individually make decisions as to who we're going to be and what we're going to believe. And there's no question that, just as with John Kennedy, this isn't anything but an inside op against somebody who has a mind and desires to use it. It's not hard for me to see that we're in a corrupt state in this country. It's not hard for me to see that we have filled the pockets of people to keep their mouths shut so Joe Biden doesn't go to prison. It's not hard for me to see. Everywhere that there was money spent, he's giving favors. Now, if you can't see that, I'm sorrowful. You're just blind. But it's everywhere. And so, how then do we walk in a world that you can see is corrupt? And how do you learn to walk in true love, where everything is love, and true light, which is generated from love. It's funny. It's like love is the fuel for the light that lives inside of us. Yahusha teaches this. He says, if your light is dark, then how dark are you inside? Most of you have no clue what that even means. But I just gave you the understanding of what that means. It is love that motivates the light inside of us. It is a true statement that God is love, and in him is no darkness at all. So if I gave you nothing else for the rest of my lifetime but this one statement, my life is valid, okay? We are supposed to be on a journey to emulate that which we already are. And if God is love, and if we are love, and as Yahusha says, if we are already light, then what is your light? Are you really allowing the love that you're supposed to be? I'm talking the true depth of love your neighbor as yourself. See, they're not mutually exclusive. I don't have to throw away truth to keep some ideology. And it's okay if somebody wants to accuse me of picking and choosing. I think the saddest fact is we let people manipulate and condemn us by saying that we're picking and choosing, when really what we're doing is we're viewing what is and what isn't, and we're calling what isn't. If it ain't, listen, we got an old saying in Texas, okay? If it looks like it and smells like it, you probably don't want to take a bite, okay? It's just that simple. And some of this stuff is so woefully easy unless you're under the shroud of religious manipulation. Just as there are people out there selling people bills of goods all the times that are fake, because we haven't been up till this point mature enough to be able to admit that our belief system might be broken in some manner. And because it's broken, I want to find out what's broken, and I want to try to repair that or fix that, which is exactly what's led me to this point. So is the narrative being corrupted today? Why does that matter? Why is it so big? It's so big because exactly what Morrow is speaking about is exactly what we're watching. What is going to be the narrative? Is it going to be Joy Behar's narrative that the whole attempt of Trump was a disaster because he didn't get killed? Or is it going to be that somebody paid by our government tried to kill someone who is exposing our government? Those two stories are narratives that will get laid down in eternity, friends. The people that come 20 years after us, my grandchildren's children, will look at America and our life and our world. What kind of picture are we going to paint for them? It's so sad to me how weak-minded and mindless we are that these things matter. How can you love your grandchildren and approve lies? How? It's not love. It's a lie. Yeah, I know I'm a little passionate, but man, I don't know. I don't think we have an abundant amount of time to get this right. There's some reason that all of this is going on. There's some reason that the upheaval. I talk to sinners who could care less about anything righteousness, and yet they sense in the spirit realm something's going on big. Something's big is going on. I've heard many, many people speak that that's exactly right. So, on that theme, I then would desire to share truth. For those of you that accept it, wonderful. For those of you who don't, wonderful. Maybe you'll be hung up in the middle there, and you're just not quite sure. You know, you've been told all your life that it's good to be a good Democrat, and now we have people that are saying that. So if you struggle, I get it. But we have to continue on the journey, regardless of the struggle we have to go through. You can't quit just because it's hard. It's just like I couldn't afford to stay in Christianity just because people talk about me and people said horrible things about me, and narcissists have done everything they can do to hurt me. I can't stop just because of those things. I have to continue my journey for truth. And if you're one of those that has that, if we are kindred spirits, then I think the Spirit has definitely led you to the right place. And if you're not, then maybe the Spirit led you there anyways. So we're going to take a few seconds, as we did, and let's catch our breath and hopefully kind of calm our minds. Some of you, as I've shared, you know, I can share about the need to meditate, and the mass majorities will never waste their time to do so. And it's really not my loss, it's really your loss. So anything that is foreign seems difficult, and most of us, unfortunately, were told that only whacked out people meditate. So let's just take a few minutes and catch our breath, and then we're going to jump into the Naked Bible, controlling our past to mortgage our future. Big breath in, hold it, if you've had any that have come to your mind, things that you need to release today, and this time right now is a really good time to release those things. Okay. Father says it's time to go on. All right. Naked Bible, controlling the past to mortgage your future. It was a Tuesday on March 10th of 2020. It was Italy's turn to experience the extreme harshness of the lockdown after China, the first country in the world to do so. Everything was closed and travel was prohibited. Millions of citizens were confined to their homes and forced not to work. The deserted cities were suspended in an immense silence. And the reason for this decision, the spreading of the coronavirus epidemic. In a remarkable video shot from his home in full curfew mode, Mauro Biglino identified some illuminating details cited scientific resources. In just a few weeks of complete transportation shutdown in the spring of 2020, the Earth's atmosphere had cleared significantly. Despite the worldwide ecological alarm insistently reiterated in recent years, it's as though the Earth only needed a handful of days to get set to right. According to Indian experts, even the water of the Ganges River might have eventually become potable. Historians recall that during the so-called Little Ice Age in the 17th century, during the winter in Paris, that they could skate on the frozen Seine River, while markets were set up on the iced-over surface of the Thames in London. On the other hand, in the so-called warm period of the Middle Ages between 900 and 1200 AD, the temperature was a mild one even in Iceland, while vines were grown in England. It is legitimate to suspect that someone might periodically be secretly manipulating certain events to send out messages intended to profoundly transform society. Various official sources have also spoken explicitly about the Great Reset, In June of 2020, it was Kristalina Georgieva, pardon me if I got that wrong, director of the International Monetary Fund, who considered the global economic paralysis induced by the pandemic emergency to be an extraordinary opportunity. I'm sure all of you know this, but any crisis, when you hear people that speak of crisis as an opportunity, don't be surprised. Hillary Clinton said the same thing. It's very well known amongst typically left-leaning people that you make crisis so that you have an opportunity to manipulate humanity. And so a formidable acceleration towards the great transformation based on the digital cloud market and the green economy. Joining the German economist Klaus Schwab, president of the Davos Forum and the author of the neologism Great Reset, are members of the World Bank, influential politicians from the UK and US, and great minds of industry and finance. Their possible goal? To exploit this pandemic crisis, reset the economic model, and replace it with the so-called Green New Deal. Is anybody seeing it? Are there any of you out there that have heard or learned anything that we are kind of already in transition all over the world into a digital currency that will duplicate what China already imposes on their people, where you will never actually have money and the government controls the credit card that you're issued? I know you probably think that's really far-fetched, but it's not. So this model would then be ruled by the giants of what Shoshana Zuboff, a Harvard Business School professor, has called surveillance capitalism. Okay? We'll let you move about and do things, but we're going to watch and control your money. Any of you tried to go in a bank and take any quantity of money out? Because for the most part, you can't. Of strategic importance is the role of the so-called Big Five of technology: Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft. With the progressive digitalization of our daily lives, these major players of the web are destined to penetrate with ever greater invasiveness and ability to control the existence of human beings. Controlling the multitudes. Does this have anything to do with the Bible? Mauro Biglino's answer is very clear. This trend is just not a contemporary one. Just look at certain passages of Exodus and Deuteronomy. Okay? You have Jews that will die that Moses wrote the Torah, and it's very clear that he didn't write the Torah. And Mauro's answer is very clear. This trending is not just a contemporary one. Just look at certain passages of Exodus and Deuteronomy. In fact, did you know, and as I've showed in the past, did you know that there's really only one place in the whole of the 5 books that the Jews call the Torah? Only one place that is actually attributed by the text to Moses. That's all. Where did the rest of all of those rules come from that Yahweh, the God of war, gave to man? Like, give me all your gold and make me big boxes and... It's so crazy. The scholar draws such vertical parallels step by step. How is it possible that the same pattern can recur, at least in its fundamental assumptions, over thousands of years? A striking response seems to be contained in Paolo Rumor's essay, The Other Europe. Everything suddenly becomes more understandable if we hypothesize that human events are orchestrated by a hidden hand and guided by very few people that are capable of somehow passing on their power in what is essentially a dynastic way, which is the lineage of the Rockefellers is what it is, and they are what they are because of what they've been. Is this believable? It is rumor himself who sheds light on this. The book was written on the memoirs of his father, Giacomo, who at a certain point in his life was made aware of the existence of mysterious entity, a very small elite, allegedly ruling the planet in an uninterrupted way for thousands of years, with roots as far back as Mesopotamian antiquity. Now, would that not be a kick in the pants for all of us to find out when I showed you the things that happened in Mesopotamia, and we find out that there are these gods that come from the sky? We call them sky people. They're all over the book of Enoch. They're all over the Bible, but let's wonder, are there really UFOs? Right? They're all over India and Hinduism, which we're going to take a look at here in a week or two. Quite crazy, friends. An expert like Loris Bagnora, who contributed to Rumor's book, confirms that the toponymy mentioned in the book is perfectly consistent with the historical geography of that area of the Middle East along the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. So to say that is not at all surprising. Another expert, the eminent Italian political scientist Giorgio Galli himself, one of the other co-authors of the book, confirms that the powerful people mentioned by Rumor, even those not in the foreground, actually played a decisive role in the secret construction of the future European Union decades in advance of the events then known to the general public. So this begs the question, who was Giacomo Rumor's source? The man to reveal to him the existence of this phantom structure made of unseen powers was Maurice Schumann, an esoterist and well-known French politician and one of the founders of Gaullism. According to Schumann, based on what he apparently revealed to Giacomo Rumor, certain operations of global impact had been like child's play. This is what the self-styled structure had always done. Global oversight, wars, empires, revolutions, technological advances, and control of knowledge. The gradual diffusion of ideologies, beliefs, and information. Have any of you taken any time to go look? Is it valid, the billions of dollars that we pay in taxes every year to public schools? Are we really getting our money's worth? Have any of you taken the time to go look at that? I know many people that work in the school system that think the school system is wonderful. So please don't tell me that it's not easy for us to get hung up in an ideology, because that's where our sustenance comes from, and miss the obvious. How, if we're spending more and more money every year, how are our children getting less and less and less and less intelligent? So they have the ability to view all of these things. So let's ask ourselves, in light of what went on last Saturday, let's ask ourselves, is it possible, maybe even, could I say probable? Is it probable that some unknown force in the United States of America, which is not exposed, that has been controlling this country pretty much since the beginning, is it possible that that source actually arranged and correlated and set all of the stages for what happened on Saturday to Donald Trump, and they're tying it up and hanging it on a 20-year-old kid who got his brains blown out, even for being unsuccessful? They would have killed him still had he been successful. So there was it was already predetermined, whoever this suckfish that they got to do this job, he's going to die. That was a predisposed. That's why he's got 3 overseas hidden bank accounts. How does a 20-year-old kid acquire 3 overseas encrypted bank accounts, and he lives in a $50,000 house with his mom and dad? Maybe you should ask yourself the question how. If so, why don't your children have 3? Paid a really big price for whatever is in those bank accounts. So back to current affairs. The United Nations document called Agenda 2030 dates back to 2015, and the objectives of this document are of historic significance. Most of you don't even know about the Agenda 2030. Horrible. Agenda 2030 envisions a world with income equality, gender equality, vaccines for all under the aegis of the WHO, or the World Health Organization, and CEP, or the Coalition for Innovations on Epidemic Prevention, launched in 2017, again by the World Forum in Davos in collaboration with who? None less than the Gates Foundation, who has already clearly stated that we really do need to kill the mass majority of humans on the earth. I believe the number Bill Gates says that we should have, we are somewhere teetering on the 8 billion people. He says there should only be 500,000 people that exist on the earth at any one time. Do any of you even know that? The richest man, one of the richest men in the world, owns more personal property in America, pieces of large tracts of land, than any other single individual on the face of this earth. So if we go according to Bill's things, then all of y'all need to die so that I can have 500,000 acres of land. Sorrowful guys, but I really need this 500,000 acres of land. Do you see the absurdity? These are the people that are right in front of you. Everybody here knows Bill Gates. In an analysis that does not differ much from the one Monsignor Vigano himself would later propose, Engdahl sees yet another elitist dystopia, a substantial erosion of the middle class income to facilitate a reduction in consumption and carbon emissions. Can I tell you something? Donald Trump sees that. That's why he's the only president that has given us any kind of a sizable tax relief and yet brought more money into the government. Why? Because he's trying to benefit people, not trying to control us. And you can choose not to believe that and think he's a horrible man. It's okay, people think the same about you. So the fact that you think that really doesn't mean anything. It just is your thoughts. This is not that much different, however, from what was proposed in distance 1968 by a particularly influential cynical like the one of the Rome Club, founded by the Italian manager Aurelio Pecchi, that sounded an alarm that had tremendous resonance. Humanity must curb its ambitions and its consumption to mitigate the environmental impact caused by the overpopulation of the planet. Point in fact. Just so you know, Bill Gates' journey is just a continuation of someone else's journey. All he's doing is carrying this guy's from the 60s ideology into the 2000s. It's the exact same agenda. It's the exact same thing. He's spending money to make sure that that happens. He's tied up in, I believe he owns the patent to the vaccine. And by the way, I would like to state, I thought the purpose of the vaccine that was crammed down everybody's throat was so that you don't get COVID. Quite confusing to me how someone who's had all the vaccines and has ruined millions of people's lives could all of a sudden come down with COVID. If you buy that, you deserve whatever you get. So they sounded an alarm that had tremendous resonance. Humanity must curb its ambitions and its consumption to mitigate the environmental impact caused by the overpopulation of the planet, create a world that would forever be free from hunger and lack. In other words, it is precisely the recent prosperity gradually achieved by billions of people around the world that is endangering the ecosystem of the planet. Now, it would seem The timelessness of these predictions is explosively shocking. Given the structure of the new surveillance capitalism that is being created, the aforementioned income equality, again, according to William Engdahl, could only translate into depressing equality downwards, with the transfer of income subtracted from the base and diverted to the top of the pyramid. So the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. According to the analysis of the global banking institutions, UBS, what we're headed towards in a post-pandemic world presenting itself with a concentration of wealth not seen since 1905. So it's not if this is their agenda, folks. It's already happening. Any of you recognize that you go and fill a basket up and it costs you a whole lot more money than it did? I used to go get 4 bags of groceries for $300, and I left the other day with 2 bags. And I went, what the heck? According to the analysis of global banking institution, UBS, what we're headed towards, please listen, this is right now real time, post-pandemic. The pandemic was a part of the reset. It was engineered, it was intended to accomplish exactly what they did, which is to kick people off of their feet so that they can control you, and they're going to do it by fear. And the more that they hurt the economy and the more that we don't have, the more they can feed off of your fear. If you understand about spirit realm is energy, and it needs energy to continue to exist. And fear creates infinitely more energy than strength and love does. So, we're headed towards an post-pandemic world presenting itself with a concentration of wealth not seen since 1905, when the battles for workers' rights and fair wages were still in their infancy. Are we facing an end of history scenario? Can one believe economist Peter Koenig, already part of the World Bank and the World Health Organization itself, when he argues that the global pandemic, after all, serves the purpose of the elite pulling the economical political strings? Just points of view, of course, not to mention a famous statement made by Prince Charles, according to whom the shock waves triggered by the pandemic crisis may well make people more receptive to big visions of change. Wow. This is the same Prince Charles who's now the king, who had the huge service a few years ago where he introduced Molech to the world again? Really? Some of you probably don't even know that. It was a big to-do, man. Filled a stadium full of devil-worshipping, demon-inspired people, and front and centered Molech. Good guy. You should follow him. He's English. It's precisely about royal families. Mauro Biglino stresses that Paolo Rumor's book, made available to the press in 2010, talks about. So 10 years before the pandemic, he was speaking of this. The book mentions a very peculiar esoteric tradition, one that is tied to the belief that the history of the human species on Earth is much older and arouses far more controversy than what is held by official science. Reread today, Rumor's book leaves us speechless. There was, and perhaps still is, at a very high level, and unknown to us, a group of people or an entity that works and is still working on an important project for Europe and beyond. According to the author, the members of this secret elite do not hesitate to resort to techniques of suggestion or dissimulation to guide and influence public opinion, its expectations, its mental aspirations, and consequently to accept the structural changes involving the national communities they push forward. As for individual governments, still according to rumor, they do not seem to have the ability to interfere with this aforementioned plan of action. And here's why they shot at Donald Trump on Saturday. Because he, for whatever reason, I personally believe it's an appointed time. I don't think that he's a Messiah because I don't believe in a Messiah. I don't think there's a person that's going to save the world. But he is one of the Messiahs because only through all of us do we have any hope of saving this world. That's why the love and the light thing that is going on in the world is going on, because the only way this world is going to be saved, friend, is by love. Until people begin to truly love each other, there is no hope for humanity. Now, so I understand the sky people are not going to let us destroy ourselves. So, according to the author, the members of this secret elite do not hesitate to resort to techniques of suggestion or dissimulation to guide and influence public opinion, its expectations, its mental aspirations, and consequently to accept the structural changes involving the national communities that they push forward. As for individual governments, still according to rumor, they do not seem to have the ability to interfere with this aforementioned plan of action. The same is true for political parties. In reality, they are completely excluded from what in jargon is called the Great Work. I've mentioned some on this recently, that really neither one of the two parties, they're only tools that are being used by those behind the scenes. And the reason for a Democrat and a Republican Party is so that we can fight amongst each other so that they can be the puppet masters and control the narrative. That's what this is all about, friend. It's not about Donald Trump. If you had any clout and influence, it would be about you. They speak just as ill of Elon Musk because he calls out the truth for what it is. So the same is true for political parties. In reality, they are completely excluded from what in jargon is called the Great Work. They're insignificant. This is all a game. We're all living in an illusion, friends. We are light. We are eternal light. We will always exist. Our bodies will die, but we will never die. Energy does not die. It just changes to another form. We will change from human form back into spirit form, and we will continue on as we have in the past, for who has any clue? Nobody. Of how long? So what does this great work, a term borrowed from the Hermetic lexicon of alchemical tradition, familiar to the initiatory circuits. And what does this great work consist of? The project envisions that Europe be governed by a moral leadership personified by some individuals belonging to the branches of ancient nobility that have their roots in the distant past, partly of Jewish extraction. Rumor decodes that as a sort of transversal structure which acts as a catalyst for certain contingent decisions of economic, social, and political nature in conjunction with certain important historical moments and events. And how far back does this entity date to? The very dawn of civilization, although this is almost embarrassing to say. Embarrassing is the right adjective. I can only express my amazement, rumor confesses, at the assertion that a more or less significant part of Western history has been and still is skillfully and profoundly influenced by a few ruling minds, which is why most black people believed that they were the only ones who were slaves when the history, once again, you have to get outside of the ideology to see the truth of the ideology. And the truth of true history statistically is there were infinitely more Irish people brought to the United States under terms of enslavement than there ever was black people brought to this country. Most black people do not know that. Why? Because what end would it benefit those who want to govern by separating and causing dissension? If you tell black people they've been abused, they're going to act as if they've been abused, even if they have that still doesn't change the reality that they are no longer being abused. I know many white people that are abused today, friends, but we have no one to go before the world and scream and cry at the top of their lungs. Doesn't diminish. I believe the American Indians have infinitely been damaged more than all race sectors put together. They had their land stolen and nobody feels sorry for them. And if they decide to take their reservation away from them today, as they have done in the past, because they find big wealths of riches on it, they will run them off of it again in the year 2024. Do you really believe in any equity? Do you really believe that? Were these subhumans because some Christian came over here and said because they understood the groundedness of Mother Earth, which is where we were created, and the sanctity of Spirit Father, which is where we were created from, and that makes them a savage because they don't believe in some fake person that was concocted? Maybe you should go, wow, I never thought of it in that manner. Rumor and the Big Reset. Mauro Biglino himself invites us to reflect with an open mind on some of the innovations that are appearing on our horizon in such a very short time. Take the so-called universal income, for example. Vagano too mentions the possibility of arriving at a sort of universal salary in exchange for the transferring of part of our freedoms. So why are we pushing into the digital age? Because they can control, and they will now, if you will be a good boy and if you will bow and submit to me, you can have your credit card and we will let you do what we say you can do. And it's already in the works, friends. They're testing this new digital banking system out right here. People send me videos from all over the places, none of which do I go to. So I'm not corrupted by TikTok, which if any of you are watching TikTok, you probably ought to think about the fact that you're feeding the Chinese fake narrative. Biglino mentions Angela Merkel's Germany, where the first project of this sort has begun. So he's going to give us some historical places where this is going on. 120 people will be given a salary of 1,200 euros a month for 3 years, provided that they don't do any work. So here's what I would like you to see. That's already happened and passed in Germany. And what did you see immediately happen when they told you you couldn't go to work? What did they immediately do? They began to pump stimulus into our society. Why did they pump stimulus? Because they wanted to already begin to manipulate your mind to believe about relying on them as your supply. Whether you know it or not, it was a worldwide push for this agenda that we're reading in this book. You say, oh, well, it wasn't, I still got paid by my boss. You're not the only human that lives in America, friend. So it was designed to verify the degree of satisfaction that people who are maintained by the state can feel. Can we make you feel fulfilled if you don't have any purpose in life? My only purpose is to make it to the next check I get. And so it's a sort of the experiment designed to verify the degree of satisfaction that people who are maintained by the state can feel, a sort of guaranteed income as long as one is ready to give up several freedoms. This is not even altogether novel. It's not altogether new, friends. It is an experiment that has already been attempted in Canada, then in Finland, and that is now starting in Germany to specific ends. All this Biglino maintains suggests a very particular conception of us on the part of these few ruling over the many. a particular conception of humanity seen as some sort of herd or cattle, an anonymous group kept in farms whose shapes and sizes can vary according to the objectives of those who govern them. Once they get control, if they want to get rid of obesity, they will simply starve you to death so that you have not enough food to gain weight and thereby control you. If they want you to be, they will give you all the food that you can possibly eat and everything that will make you gain fat, and they will cause the whole society to be too fat to fight. But it all is tied to the few ruling over many. Can I be honest with you, friends? I don't care what your political belief is, that's your opinion, but my opinion on the deal is that is exactly what the guy that's running for president right now is fighting against. See, the world doesn't want America to be great again or ever. Surely you've heard that. If you listen to anything in history and then gone and looked in the future and as well as the present, it's quite clear to see that. Putin certainly knows it. So we are to be kept in farms whose shapes and sizes can vary according to the objectives of those who govern them. We would therefore be controlled in this way and considered as animals. Zootechnics, it would seem. But how should all of these be entangled with the subject of Biglino's decade-long studies? That is easily said. In the Bible, the Elohim who made humanity considered us more or less like a particularly evolved animal species, which we are technically, an animal species that could be used for their needs as it had been rendered capable of understanding and carrying out orders of various degrees of complexity, especially the more the species were perfected by them. Understand, Morrow, better than any of us do, know the meaning of the word Elohim, which he used, which is many gods. Manufactured humanity. Biglino is not alone in holding this hypothesis. In 96, when the embryo from which the sheep Dolly was born was cloned, the rabbis were not at all scandalized. So you had then the what you were taught about and what you were programmed to believe about the rabbis and about Judaism. Judaism is all tied up in the middle of witchcraft and always has been. Genetic cloning. It is already present in the Bible, according to Yigael Safran, professor of medical ethics at the University of Jerusalem. Just look at how Adam and Eve came to be. So biblical zootechnics, and what relationship would this have with the hypothetical great manipulation going on today under the guise of the Great Reset? Biglino, I am merely interested in detecting the seeds of this conception of humanity, understood as a mass of individuals over which certain minds who consider themselves elevated, or perhaps they really are, believe they have the right to govern at their pleasure. Honestly speaking, this also implies a very low consideration of ourselves. It means we are being commodified. We are property subjects simply capable of producing wealth for them if properly directed, which is why Big Brother doesn't want you to make any decisions for your own. They want to tell you everything to do. Whether you know it or not, that is one of the bases of the Civil War that's coming in America, is those people who choose to be Bravehearts and to say, I might die, but you're not going to control me. Now, as rebellious as some people are, you should be able to understand that. So, ponder that they consider themselves elevated, or perhaps they really are. If we really are, and there's many, Morrow is not the only one. There's a whole esoteric spiritual realm over here who tells you that we've always been overseen by sky people, that we've never been alone. We go and look at research, and we look at history at great manufactured things that have happened, that were happening 10,000 years ago, that there's no way possible, according to what we have been told about reality, there's no way possible those things could have been built. And they certainly wouldn't have had the knowledge that they had of flying machines and electricity, and we just write that stuff off. The mass majority of people have already been so diminished mentally that they don't even think anymore about how did this happen 10,000 years ago. I know that you don't understand it, but we all are guilty of practicing mindlessness on a daily basis. Oh, well, it's just the way it is, and that's what they told me in school, and that's good enough for me. Do you understand the significance of straight is the gate and narrow is the way, and few there are going to be that find it? Many of the teachings you find in the scriptures, friends, are absolutely relevant. They are hidden pieces of ancient knowledge that got brought into a text and then corrupted around, like you are the light. But then again, I guess you have to believe that you're the light before you will ever manifest that. So, these people believe that they have the right to govern at their pleasure. Honestly speaking, this also implies a very low consideration of ourselves. Once again, they have worked for thousands of years to diminish us to the point that we no longer know. Do you understand that that's a piece of the light? That's a piece of the war. If they can get you to not believe in yourself, they have you. If I can send you some precursor, we're two countries and we're fixing to wage war. There's one going on right now that I will be more than happy to put in front of you. Right now, and it may not happen, but I won't be surprised if before this election goes off, if they're going to attack us, we're going to see an attack. That could put things within a month of us. Why? Because Putin has already said that he knows everything that's been allowed to go on is not going to go on if he gets elected. He knows that. Look at the history, although the Democrats want to tell you that he's a liar about everything he says because they want a narrative that's different than what the truth is. But why is he the only president in the last 50 years who Russia hasn't invaded somebody while he was in office? That's a historical fact, friend. So you want to see what they don't like, what isn't conducive for them taking world power? Go watch the picture. We're not only in Ukraine, they're going to go further. If the Democrats continue to hold office, I guarantee you Ukraine is going to be the least of our concerns. But now we're already $250 billion in debt to a country that we have no access in except for those people that are selling power. That's all. For those of you who do not know this, the mass majority of the armaments we have sent to the Ukraines have been found and verified by America internal investigation branches, military information, that most of those armaments that we gave to Ukraine are being sold on the black market as fast as they hit Ukraine. At pennies on the dollar. So it costs you and me $60 billion to send them, and they get $20 billion and sell them to a country who may want to use them against us. And nobody questions this, but it's out there. Why aren't you hearing about Israel if things are so bad? Why hasn't Israel in almost a month been in the news? Are they not fighting anymore? All is at peace now? Because it's not beneficial right now to use it. When it's beneficial, you won't hear anything but 24/7. That's all you'll hear is Israel, 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 or Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. When they use that up, it's really a narcissistic deal. The definition of a narcissist is they only have relationship based on what they get out of it. America is narcissistic. They only have use for a country based on what they can manipulate them into doing. So that means everything we do is an agenda against the people that supposedly we're helping. So already in this, as usual, Biglino prefers to let the Bible speak directly. Deuteronomy chapter 15. Yahweh says to the people he has chosen, this little bitty sect of nobodies down here, that Yahweh is the God over. And some of you, if you ever really understand what's going on here, he was only the God of a little bitty sector of people. The person who sent me the scriptures, thank you, but you should learn how to read and decipher what's being said, because none of what you sent to me had anything to do with anybody except for the corrupt Judah. And I'm not corrupt Judah. So let's see, what does Deuteronomy say? Yahweh says to the people he has chosen, thou shalt reign over many nations, but they shall not reign over thee. Already in this passage, the scholar points out the concept of an elite is introduced. Zionism was begun because of a writing. One inserted amongst humanity in a dominant position. Right? The God Yahweh, who flies his rocket ship up on top of a mount where Moses is and speaks with him for 40 days, but Moses can't see him because he'll die, and the top of the mountain is burnt, and we don't understand Elohim means someone that is much mightier than us, or what the kavod even means. Like rumor, Biglino specifies, I don't make any judgments on whether these facts are correct or not. I simply want to tell the story as it is and make its content available to everyone. People will then come to their own conclusions. You can either read that and understand it, or you will read that and go, I don't see it. And I've met both, plenty of both. There's plenty of people who cannot see what's obvious to others. There's always been seers and people who can't see. Always. So to achieve this management of humanity, the scholar adds, we humans must be considered as mere commodities, tools to be used. What then are the seeds of this conception? The Bible often mentions censuses. Not being at all omniscient, Yahweh needed to count conduct censuses of his population to verify their numbers. And you might not like what he just said if you're still trying to hang on to Yahweh as your God, and good luck with that, but he's not a God to anything except mythology. At the worst, at the greatest, he's a sky god, he's a sky people, he has a flying ship, and he comes to earth, and when he does, he by power controls his people. But he doesn't know how many people he has. So he's not omniscient. He's not all-knowing. He has to have us count ourselves because he ain't got a clue about how many of us there are. And above all, Yahweh needed to know how many viable males he could count on to wage his war of conquest. The book of Exodus is extremely clear in this regard. The following instructions are found in chapter 30 of your book of Exodus. When thou takest the sum of the children of Israel after their number, then shall they give every man a ransom for his soul unto the Lord when thou numberest them, that there be no plague amongst them when thou numberest them. So here's how it would be. We just hired 80,000 new IRS agents so that when you are taken in the count of the number, you can appease the God so that he will not put a plague on you. You do understand the IRS system is totally nowhere in our constitutional system. It is totally unconstitutional. Most people probably do not know that what I just said is true. The boss is saying, the moment I count you, pay me, and otherwise I will hit you with a plague. Wow. I'm sure that if you're still hung in the nonsense of a two-God Old Testament and a new God New Testament, that you won't be able to see that, friend, but it's painfully clear. I've had people around me who, in spite of their what pieces that they saw, said, I don't believe this. There's something not right. I've heard that for years. There's something not right. Why would a God who is so kind and large and benevolent and loving, why would he make this box that's worth $50 billion so they can carry it through the desert when, as far as we have, other than what is in there, is that Moses built a box out of acacia wood and put the stone tablets in it. Do you see those two don't ever go together? They can't be the same. So the boss is saying, the moment I count you, pay me. Otherwise, I'll hit you with a plague. Big Lino smiles. Do you understand what the concept of ownership over individuals is? It's slavery. Each had his price. Whoever is counted shall pay half a shekel, which was equal to about 10 grams of silver. This half shekel will be an offering to Yahweh. Compulsory taxation for anyone aged 20 or more without any distinction of wealth. The rich shall not give more, nor the poor less. So he's actually a heartless, merciless God as well. Biglino insists on this point. It's a hard concept to digest. I will count you amongst my own, and you will pay me because your life is mine. That's the whole concept. While I heard it and I saw it, I always wondered, well, why does a man have to buy back his son, and why should he kill his first ass, the child of an ass? Why should he break his neck if he doesn't pay the money? What good is it gained if I can't afford to pay the money? And so I have a young colt that I might sell when it grows up, and instead I have to break its neck. So if you can't pay me, nobody gets it. Wow. Instead, would it not be more benevolent if this great God, let's switch off of Yahweh and let's go over here to El, because El is a kind, loving God, the Father of Yahweh. And El says that whatever you do, you should do it from your heart, and you should give all that you have, plus whatever is in your heart to find. But if you don't do it from inside of you, you're a joke and a fake, and I don't want it anyways. The picture that we got about the first 10 commandments were not the same as the second 10 commandments, friend. Play out 1,000 different %. Originally, he could not get man to have a heart that was acceptable. The only way that people accept things is when they're forced to do it. And if you have to be forced to do it, then there's no glory and honor, and you deserve whatever you get. So wouldn't it be much better if you didn't have IRS pounding on your bank account every year for those that even pay their taxes? Wouldn't it be a lot better thing if people gave because they value the quality of America? Wouldn't that be a more honorable system than I'm going to force you to? And now, although they're denying it, but it's true still nonetheless, instead we're going to add 80,000 more people and we're going to train them how to shoot pistols, which I still can't for the life of me understand why they need a pistol. So it's a hard concept to digest. I will count you amongst my own, and you will pay me because your life is mine. You can redeem it by paying for it. And I, the alleged spiritual, transcendent, omniscient, omnipotent God, shall enrich myself with your silver. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? This allows us to understand how deeply the seeds of the past are still rooted in our present lives and how this can help us, at least hypothetically, to foresee what is to come, what they have in mind for us, possibly in the near future. And for those of you who send me things about the digital currency constantly and send me things about the Great Reset constantly, what you're seeing, I think, is absolutely correct. So we mustn't then be scandalized if someone is terrified of some dystopian ending as the result of this looming Great Reset. That's nothing that hasn't happened before, nothing too alien, certainly to the proto-zootechnical conception that can be glimpsed verbatim in the Old Testament. And I'm quite sure probably many of you have never seen it in that light because that light has been hidden from you. And here we are at last. We have entered in a rather direct manner the realm of biblical exegesis for which Mauro Biglino has become a best-selling author. In all probability, the very times we live in facilitate a very contemporary rereading of the Old Testament. These pages put all firstborns, humans, but those animals considered impure as well, are placed on the same level. They are reserved for Yahweh, but can be bought with an offering or money. In this case, Biglino comments, we reach a frightened level of the commodification of people. In Leviticus, we read that the Lord said to Moses, speak to the children of Israel and tell them, if a man wishes to satisfy a pledge, here is the value that you will need to present for each of these people pledged to the Lord. This means that if someone has contracted debt and therefore has offered himself to the temple, that is to say, the state property of the time, if he wanted to redeem himself, he would have to settle the bill according to a very precise tariff. The value of a 20 to 60-year-old male would be 50 shekels of silver. That was how much the freedom of a physically strong man was worth to the God Yahweh. It is a woman, the value will be 30 shekels because she's only a little over half the worth. And it is a person aged 5 to 20, your price will be for the male 20 shekels and for the female 10 shekels. And what about the children? If it is a child from 1 month to 5 years, the value of the male will be 5 silver shekels, while that of the female is 3 silver shekels. The devaluation for elderly individuals was also inevitable, but even there, with a clear distinction between men and women. For a person aged 60 and over, if male, the value will be 15 shekels, if female, 10 shekels. To summarize, a healthy male in full physical vigor is worth 50 shekels, and an old one is worth just 15. If this isn't commodification, then tell me what it is. This is a specific monetary value given to people who are treated and traded as commodities. But then, of course, it will be said that in other parts of the Bible, it seems that Yahweh says other things. Yes, it would seem so, but Biglino specifies he always does so concerning his own people, the Israelites whom he clearly distinguished from the rest of humankind. In Deuteronomy, in any case, this is indisputable, and in other books, again, taken from the Old Testament, there is even a specific value attributed to so-called sacred goods meaning those reserved exclusively for Yahweh. Just think of Leviticus chapter 5. If a soul commit a trespass and sin through ignorance in the holy things of the Lord, then he shall bring his trespass into the Lord. It is written, a ram without blemish out of the flocks, with thy estimation by shekels of silver, after the shekel of the sanctuary, for a trespass offering, and he shall make amends for the harm that he hath done in the holy thing, and shall add the fifth part thereto. That is, if you took something from the goods set aside for Yahweh, you must return the equivalent of the value plus 20%, so sacred things are completely co-modified with the addition of a VAT. The precursor of value-added tax reappears in chapter 23 of Leviticus. Whoever inadvertently has eaten a sacred thing must repay the value of the sacred thing to the priest plus 1/5 of it. Once again, the sacred thing is immediately assigned a value, an additional 20%. And this adds big lino is true for everything, even housing. The book of Leviticus, chapter 27, writes that when a man consecrated his house to the Lord, perhaps because he had to pay a debt to the temple, state property, the taxman, the priest will evaluate it, and whether its condition is in a good state or a bad state, and the priest's evaluation must be accepted. If the consecrator wants to redeem his house, add 1/5 of the sum valued, and the house will be his. Here, once again, we see the ubiquitous 20% applied to the real estate transaction. I'm surprised, funny enough, that isn't what they use still today in our society. We're a little more corrupt maybe than at that time, and sometimes I think those numbers go up to what, 20, 30, 40, 50%? So here, once again, we see this 20% applied. Money is the incontestable value. Everything has a price, people as well. How much could one individual be worth? 50 shekels silver at best, as long as he was male, in full health, and at the right age to work and to fight. All this Big Lino summarizes leads us to understand how a system starts in antiquity, the Bible, and is theorized about by important political families like rumors. And what about those revelations made by Sanchuniathon and taken up by Philo of Byblos and Bishop Eusebius of Caesarea? Total control over society imposed via specific and artificially fabricated narrative. This is what an author of 1200 BC says. A system seems to be emerging here, one that has endured throughout the centuries, at least according to the various voices of different people like Rudolf Steiner and Monsignor Vigano, the director of Radio Maria, rumor all the way down to Philo and Eusebius. This system is based on the control over the past, and through the management of knowledge of this past, it manages the present and plans the future. And that is not all. By managing knowledge of the past, I guarantee document my own infallibility. If anyone disagrees with that, they will be harshly rebuked. Which is why so many people were killed by the Catholic Church for saying that what the Catholic Church was teaching was a lie. You were considered a heretic. They had a whole sect of hundreds of heretics that were paid for by the Roman Catholic Church to go and hunt down people who dared tell anyone that Catholicism wasn't true. Biglino realizes that at his own expense, starting the publication of his first works in the beginning of 2010, his were eloquent titles. The Bible does not talk about God, the alien God of the Bible. There is no creation in the Bible, and the Bible is not a sacred text. It is historical, but it's not what we've been sold that it is. And anyone who dares to challenge the infallibility of the official version is in for some serious trouble. Those who try to question any of it, even if with very well researched evidence and documents, is ostracized and understandably attacked in every possible way, because infallibility rests precisely on this management of knowledge of the past, at least in its substance, must remain unchanged. Let's be clear here, Mauro Biglino does not deal with the Great Reset at all. He simply asks some questions and he looks for some possible answers in a set of books written at least 2,500 years ago. This is precisely what makes him such an interesting author and not a very popular one as well. There are over 300,000 mentions of him on the web. What have you done that is so sensational? Nothing at all. Believe me, sometimes, in fact, I feel like I have the most stupid trade in the world. And what would that be? Reading the Bible as it is. There is no need to invent anything. What the Old Testament says couldn't be any clearer. It's all there, plain and simple, without any need to evoke mysterious and inexplicable facts or events. Could this be the reason why, for some, it is so dangerous to hear what the Bible actually says? What if you had known? Here is the Moses scroll by a known scholar. Here is the Moses scroll, and I want to show you a piece which we, all of those years, because of what we were taught, and yet we never knew. I am Elohim, your Elohim. The first thing I was taught when I began to look at the Hebrew versions is that Elohim is a plural word, and then we get the dreaded, come on with me, but it can also be singular. Okay? That's like those guys is that one. You don't say those guys. You intentionally put the inflection of plurality because it's not singularity. And we were told by lots of Christian scholars who have worked very hard to prove that they are absolutely correct that Elohim inexplicitly has to be able to mean singular, although Hebrew has a word for a singular God. It's called Eloah. And so, I am Elohim. Listen to what it says. There's actually a demonic statement that's made in the New Testament, and it hit me in my understanding about this. I am Elohim. Does anybody remember when the Christ seed spoke to the man at Gadara? What did the man at Gadara say that I am? The man at Gadara, the spirit that lived inside of him that spoke said, we are many. Do you know that it's a probability that what he would have said would have been, we are Elohim? We are many. I am Elohim, your Elohim. So I'm your many gods who liberated you. And there shall not be any other many gods to you, only us many gods. You see the need. You guys are probably already confused, and I haven't made it through the first commandment. But that is, as far as we have from the writings of the Moses scroll, that is exactly what those words say. And sadly enough for us, because we have been ignorant and blind, and when blind follow blind, you all fall in the pit, the wording doesn't deviate through any of these. You shall not make yourselves a carved thing or any formed thing that is in the heavens or that is in the earth below or is that in the water underneath. You shall not bow down to them. You shall not serve them. Also both plural words. I am many gods, your many gods. Sanctify the seventh day. 6 days I made the heavens and the earth, and all that is in them, and I ceased on the seventh day. Therefore you shall cease also you and your animal and all that is yours. I am many gods, your many gods. And it just goes on and goes on and goes on. Do we need to go to the truth of Bereshith chapter 1? In the beginning, Elohim made us in their image. And as I've shown you guys, that thought also continues all the way through. Wow. I don't know about y'all, that's enough right there to make me recognize that the book ain't true. So, as it is on my journey, I'm not so much interested. Once I recognize something's not true, then I typically let go and move on. I want to go find out where did what we know, where did it come from? Are there other things, as I showed you guys, the creation story? Was there a creation story with a great flood and a man who was saved and yada, yada, yada? Was there any of those that existed before the short time that this supposed Moses existed? And as I showed you very clearly, there absolutely was in multiple societies. And so when we come back, we're going to take a little spell, and we're going to hopefully bless you with a few songs. When we come back, we're going to begin kind of a journey, and I feel compelled to go this way because I want you to know. Understanding we have to make allowances that other societies are doing the same thing our society is doing. And the only really hope that we have is to try to dig through history to find out what we can find out that is true. And you begin to see similarities. How did the same story, this was one of the questions I asked, how did the same story of a flood, and I don't care about the rest of the names or anything else, they could have put any name in there. I could have been Noah. But how does that same basic narrative come around 2,500 years before God made, and how does it end up in South America with the Aztecs? You see, there's too much that tells us that there was things, and the truth of the matter is we can say that it was 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, but I'm going to show you today that there was an organized religion that existed, actually two massive ones that everything else kind of bled out of, organized religions that existed 1,200 years before Moses did. And how many correlations to what you find in the Bible came out of those ancient religions? Why? Because we need to know. So I hope that you're in for that. I hope that you're interested in looking and finding. It does not change the world. The world, as those who have hearts, and I mean that literally. Not everyone has a heart. Some people could care less what I'm talking about, and that's fine. It's all going to come to the same place inevitably. And I'm okay with what happens to you. But on the other side, there are people who haven't ever been shown the truth, who would have a desire to find out the truth that has never been exposed to you. And so if you're one of those, then certainly you're in the right place. But I'm going to tell you right now that the only way that you're going to find freedom is when you free yourself. If you're waiting for God or Jesus to come free you, it ain't going to happen. So we must begin a long journey to truly come to the knowledge of who we are in the first place. So I hope you guys will join us. We'll be back in about 10 minutes or so, and hopefully you'll be blessed. All right. Hallelujah. I know that the truth for all of us can be a really beautiful picture, because in spite of all of this stuff, and I think that there's going to have to be a place where we find peace with the reality that dealing with the truth doesn't necessarily always feel positive. But I think that the defining question we have to ask ourselves is, would I rather live in a delusion than to walk in truth or reality? And if half of what Morrow, and for me it's not half, I've read enough and studied enough and listened to him enough, this guy is nailing what many people have
And because of the time we live in, there's the bad side, but there's also this good side, because the truth is being spread because of the internet at unprecedented rates. That guy would have been a no-name scholar over in Italy. Nobody in America would have even known who he was. And because of the internet. So the same thing that is a negative force also has the positive aspects of it. And so doesn't it really all come down to what we use those things for? I say it like this: all things are, which is what Paul was talking about when he said everything is amoral. There's nothing that's inherently bad or inherently good. It's what you do with what you have. Our lives are not horrible bad, nor are they wonderfully good, unless we do wonderfully good or horribly bad things, and then that defines what we are. So what about if we really did what the Master told us to do, and we really let the light shine? He didn't run from the truth. He didn't hide from the Pharisees and go, oh, you're all good guys and we're all love inside and there's no hell, so everything's wonderful. He didn't say that at all. He spoke the truth. The truth is what light is, friends. And I'm going to show you over the next months that that's always been a hidden facet of humanity. And so I don't want us to be deceived. If I have been deceived and I am blessed enough to get the opportunity not to be any longer, I want to take advantage of that. And I believe there's other people on this earth that feel the exact same way. We live in a lie constantly, and you recognize it, but we're typically powerless to do anything about it. So I think that the truth of the matter is that we have access to the things that we need, and the name of this next song is tied to those things, and the song is called More Love and More Power. The beauty is that the more love we have, the more powerful we are. More love, more power.
More love, more power, more of you in my life. More love, more power, more of you in my life. More love, more power, more power, more of you in my life. More faith, more passion, more of you in my life. I will sing your praise with all of my heart. I will sing your praise with all of my mind. I will sing your praise with all of my strength. You are Father. You are Father. You are Father. More love, more power, more of you in my life. More faith, more passion, more of you in my life.
So how beautiful and amazing it is then that if we have more love, and I do believe that there is no question that the thing that has been missing from all of our lives truly is that no matter how much you have or how you functioned in it, that the functioning in that arena of truly loving people and keeping a pure heart, you do good things because you are a good person. I believe that transcends everything. I believe when you get outside of that, no matter what happens in our governmental, so just as looking at the world around you and voicing what the truth is doesn't change that situation, neither should it change you. If you are truth and if you are light, you will shine that no matter how dark the world is. And I believe the Creator intended that to be who we are. That we are to be lights in a dark place. Well, if light is motivated by love, and love is motivated by truth, then those three are irrevocably tied together. So we must function then in doing right. Just as I've been sharing all along, it's all about righteousness, folks. That theme, it doesn't go away. It's not going to go away. I can teach you 10,000 different religions, and every one of them are going to tell you the same thing. If you'll listen to it, you have to do what's right. It's just that simple. And so when we begin on that journey then and see, wow, you mean I really can be a good person just because I choose to be? I don't need a whole list of rules to tell me what I am and I am not. I would like to just instinctively walk through a situation, look at it because I'm very mindful of everyone and everything, and walk through it and be able to diagnose what is the right thing to do in this situation. When somebody attacks you, what is the right thing to do? There's always a right and a wrong. And so I believe that what it's going to do is bring a consciousness to people as they go along, and they will begin to be able to make those discernments about what true love is. Sometimes true love is saying the hard thing, and sometimes true love is not. And so it's up to us to grow enough to be able to do that. And the next song is talking about us, that we can't let what's good and right about us be changed, but we do have the power to change what's not right if we do what's right. And the name of the song is called Change It.
You can't change it, can't rearrange it. The universe is all that we got. Leave it or take it. Well, heavenly loving, the light is so bright, and you can be free from your past. Shine a light. Get away from your mindless life. Our love was us to do what is right. Me and my mindful heart forevermore, forevermore. Get away from your mindless life. Our love was us to do what is right. Me and my mindful heart forevermore, forevermore. Get away from your mindless life. Father wants us to do what is right. Me and my mindful heart forevermore, forevermore. A good night, Heavenly Father. Another day has passed. Forgive all my mindless history. Your love's gonna last. Come to the Father. Come to Him one more time. Strong. Love is the door. Coming home for sure.
All right. Well, many walls we build all around us, and the one that we need to be the most concerned about is a wall of pride. So the name of the next song we're going to do is a recommendation of what we shouldn't do, but it's also a fulfillment, if we're not careful, of what we will do. And so the name of the song is called Wall of Pride.
Build a wall of pride. 10 feet tall, 20 feet wide. Don't build a wall of pride. Leave the false words, they hear it till your bones. Plant his words deep, you're safe in every soul. Don't build a wall of pride. Like those for me, Father is I am. We live truth life, follow his command. It's not the learning that makes the man. His word was sent to us to understand. Don't build a wall of pride. 10 feet tall, 20 feet wide. Don't build a wall of pride. Father says what it means what he said. We got to keep learning his word every day. Don't build a wall of pride. Like those boys, Father is I Live his command. It's not the money that makes the man. His word was sent to us to understand. Don't build a wall of pride. 10 feet tall, 20 feet wide. Don't build a wall of pride. Don't build a wall of pride. 10 feet tall, 20 feet wide. Don't build a wall of pride.
All right. Well, what the heck, huh? Life is good, and that ain't going to change anytime soon. So, if we will allow it to be. And the song encourages us to do exactly that. This next song does. Many of you know it in the other form. We've certainly played it several times, although howbeit there's much transition when you go from one thought process to another, so please understand that as well. The name of the song is called I Won't Back Down.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't
We'll be back.
welcome back. Wow, what a different time. Different time. Well, we looked at a little bit about that there may be some corruption in history and narratives and pieces and stuff like that. And so I just felt this week that I was supposed to kind of begin, and I don't really, it would take hours of research, and I would encourage you to go do it because you'll be amazed with all the pieces that I couldn't share. But I'm really trying to share. It's obvious to me that there are going to be people, and maybe there have been people even close, who can't quite make rationale out of how did everything that we were taught, and for the most part the different versions of it over the course of 2,500 years, how could that have all been corrupt and make it to this point? And I think that's certainly a valid thinking person's, you would have to ask that. But if you're willing to ask that, then you also have to be willing to accept the answer when you find those answers. And I've been trying as hard as I can to share the answers to those. Where did this thought process come from that we were taught our whole lives isn't correct? However you want to say it, is it correct? Is it true? Whatever feels comfortable for you as far as that, because oftentimes it's both. It's not correct because it's not true. And so it began to occur to me that if religion existed, then just as with the flood narrative in Mesopotamia that I showed you guys, are there any other pieces of religion? Okay, so we can take the flood narrative. I've found it in, I don't remember, I had a count, 7, 8, 10 different belief systems across history. Some in the same area, some all the way across the world from it. And I asked myself, how did this flood narrative, how is it so universal? How did the American Indians have a story about a flood that destroyed the earth? How does that happen? I mean, there was no internet. There's no people, I'm sure there weren't just people riding around all over the earth on ships going to share the good news that there was a flood in history. So that then should kind of prick our minds to go, well, there has to be more to all of this. And so in my research and looking, I posed the question to myself, if religion is ancient, and if we have these pictures, the story of the flood, if you look at it outside of the context of supposedly the Jewish Bible being the truth, then they had the same story, but the same connotations were not attached to that story. That is to say, it wasn't a God thing. It was in the concept of Anu and Anki and Enlil, which I shared with you guys. And so I felt like that maybe for all of us to be able to really, in a deeper level, grab a hold of the truth, because we need to know, or we need to at least feel relatively sure that where we're headed has a purpose. And so I began to research kind of under the concept of what is religion, where did religion come from, how long has religion been, how much has religion recycled itself over the last 5,000 years? And I was quite shocked. It's going to take several weeks to share that with you guys, but I was really quite shocked how many pieces in some really strange places, and then it, of course, drew correlations to me, like how much this sky person called Yahweh, who came on a spaceship to lead his people and give words to Moses on top of a mountain. And I know some of you may not understand, but that is, in the concreteness of the Hebrew language, that is actually what the scripture says happened. That Yahweh came and spoke to him, and that Yahweh was a Elohim, and he came in something that made lots of fire and wind and noise. And so you can certainly go do that. I've shared multiple times that you can go check out. There's an amazing teaching about the kavod, which was told to us as the glory of God Moses couldn't see. And in fact, according to the Hebrew, it doesn't have anything to do with the glory of God. It has to do with a machine. And that's pretty crazy right there. So you want to talk about intentional deception, that would be a really good way to get it. So I'm calling this the origins of religion, and many of you, our public school system is horrible about teaching history, and what history we do get is, for the most part, is pretty geared towards whoever, which most history is, geared to whoever has control at the time. That's why you find over in Egypt, one king lived and he wrote all of these great things on walls carved into rock, and then you see the next king come and pay somebody to chisel all of those things off the wall so people can't remember how great this king before him was. The principles Morrow is talking about, friends, have always existed in history. So we have to then try to take pieces to make sense to find something remotely close to truth. So this today is going to be about one of the oldest known religions that's ever existed on the face of this earth, and they're called the pyramid text. Now, we know that the pyramids are ancient. We've heard really, really lots of different diagramming about time-wise, but what we don't know is that there were texts in existence carved in rock that still exists today that give us really the first picture of the afterlife. And it's amazing how consistent it is with things that are coming around. Now, this is the religious belief system who worship gods that Yahweh hated. So the pyramid texts are the oldest known religious texts in existence. They originated from around 2400 BC to 2300 BC is where they begin to get these texts on the walls inside of the pyramid. It kind of morphed, as everything does. Everything morphs. At best, scholars believe that Moses and the Old Testament was at the latest around 1300 BC. So just as it was with Mesopotamia, this is going on in Egypt is very, very close in time to the Sumerians in Mesopotamia. Originated from around 2400 to 2300 BC. They are a collection of ancient Egyptian religious texts inscribed within royal tombs from the time of the Old Kingdom. The pyramid texts are the oldest known religious texts that we have that are written in Old Egyptian, carved on the walls of, and then eventually they went from the walls of the pyramids to carving them on the inside of the tombs. The pyramid texts are about how we access the afterlife, and that's part of what kind of grasped me, because we're sitting here asking the same questions. Well, all of these people that are having near-death encounters and they're dying and they're going to heaven, what are they doing? They're on a journey to the afterlife. And if we have something as ancient as 5,000 years ago that tells us about the afterlife, my curiosity began to go, I wonder how close what we can watch today on YouTube is to what happened 5,000 years ago. And you guys might be totally blown away at both this and what we're going to look at next week as well. It's absolutely crazy. So they're a collection of the ancient religious texts, hand-carved into rock. They paid people, may have taken years, who knows. So they provide the earliest comprehensive view of the way in which the ancient Egyptians understood the structure of the universe. Is that important? We're talking today about the universe, friends. So what I'm also seeing there is I'm seeing humanity's been on the same journey as long as humanity's been on this earth. They wanted to know what does all of this mean? I mean, we're down here living. What does it mean? What is out there? How does all of this work? How does it happen? How does it work when we die? Everybody asks those questions, and so it morphed from the writing in the tombs to writing in the coffins was as they moved along, because they weren't, at one point they weren't building the pyramids like they had in the past. And so the pyramid texts provide the earliest comprehensive view of the way in which the ancient Egyptians understood the structure of the universe. The role of the gods, is that important for us? For me it is, because I have to tell you, friends, I still haven't gotten over the fact of the revelation that El and Yahweh are not the same gods. And when I found out that El was actually the papa of the God Yahweh, and Yahweh was this little insignificant God, that just like kicked my whole theology right out the door. It's like everything I've been taught my whole life really is a lie. We're talking about two mythological gods that neither one existed, which is why the piece that Morrow brings to it of showing, when you literally look at what the Old Testament scriptures say, because it brings in another facet of it. So what if? Here's a question for you. What if all of these things that have been cited historically about flying vehicles and flying people, and all of the stories that are written about beings coming from other places to us, like the Pleiadians and the Lemurians and the Atlanteans, and there are several bad sects of foreign people who have come to this cosmos. How does all of that work? What if Morrow is right and Yahweh is a sky god? Maybe we would call him, out of the book of Enoch, we would call him a fallen watcher. Now, that would be a heck of a shakeup if we found out that Yod He Vav He, the name so important that it can't even be spoken upon worry of death, that is actually a sky god that flew his rocket ship down here and met with Moses and tells him he got to hide behind a rock because the blast when he takes his rocket ship off is going to be so great it would burn him to cinders. And yet Morrow says that's exactly what the ancient Hebrew texts tell us. Hello. Maybe that don't shake you up, but that shakes me up. Scholarship has value, friends. You won't hear that taught in no church. So, the Egyptians had an understanding of, first off, the structure of the universe, the role that the gods played, and the fate of human beings after death. And that's the one that really caught me, because that's the one that ties to, can we find any? Maybe some of you have asked this question. Brother Rob keeps talking about these near-death experiences in the spirit realm, and so here's my question. Is there any way for me to have any confidence from recorded history that maybe the things that we're seeing that some of you think are just a bunch of BS and others think are demonic, because I've heard both, that those things existed much longer and that they had a concept, and this whole new concept of everything. Please listen to me. There is no devil. There are bad demons. I believe that that is absolutely true. And whether they're bad angels that sin and get turned by God into devils or demons, I don't know that, and you don't either. But common sense would tell us there are spirits that are bad. People who deal with the spirit realm, psychics and people who actually are active in that realm will tell you there are spirits you don't want to hang around with. So it's obvious that there are some pieces in the Bible that were known worldwide. They're not only to the Jews, as they would maybe have you to know. So it posed a nagging question. What kind of knowledge was there about the spirit realm before the Bible was written? Well, how do you go about finding out? Okay, if Yahweh is the God that's not all-knowing, he's not all omniscient, he doesn't know everything, he has to have his people counted so he can take their gold and silver away from them every now and then. If that's not the truth, then is there anything that ties us to the spiritual realm? And I believe that it will be proven, and it's up to you to choose that. But I'm certainly confident that we will find that there has been a trace and a thread of spiritual realities, friends, a long time before there was a Bible and before there was a Moses. Okay? And so, the structure of the universe, the role of the gods, and the fate of human beings after death. Those are three of the most important things. Right now, you have so many esoteric people talking about the universe, the universe, the universe, the cosmos, the universe, the cosmos. We're tied to the universe. We're all part of the universe. If you guys don't know that, then you've had your eyes closed, because it's everywhere. And so their importance lies in the antiquity and their endurance through the complete intellectual history of ancient Egypt. So in other words, they were worried about things that we're worried about today over 5,000 years ago. And to me, that's pretty significant. So it's quite obvious to me that the Bible didn't solve the issues. It didn't give us the answers. Why? The Bible tells us that we're to run away like scared little children, and we're to run to Yahweh, and yet access with the spirit realm was made available to everybody, which is also how they have convinced you that you are not light. In fact, what you really are is a broken piece of sin that doesn't deserve any forgiveness unless somebody dies for you. That's a pretty drastic stretch there, folks. I really don't think that any of us truly understand the devastation that this whole concept of eating flesh and drinking blood and having a savior, the concept in Israel, in the Hebrew mindset of a Messiah, is not what Christianity teaches a Messiah is. They weren't waiting for this wussy preacher to come over here and tell us how to attain enlightenment. They wanted a warrior that was going to come down and kill the Romans. You want to go talk to some Jews and find out about what the Messiah they're waiting for. They're not waiting on the suffering servant. They're waiting on a warrior, a Yahweh man. And so whatever Yahweh is, this Messiah is to be the same. And of course, Yeshua came and told them what? You got to love your neighbor like you love yourself. If somebody's rude and mean and hateful to you, be nice to them, because the curse is on them, not you. And if we lived our life with that as being our only truth, we would probably all live a lot better life. So, these writings expose these three things to us, which are still quite relevant for us today. The oldest text that we have dates back, as I said earlier, to 2400, somewhere between 2400 and 2300. And unlike the coffin text or the later version called the Book of the Dead, which predates everything that's religious that we know, there was kind of a bent towards, but then again, it wasn't completely. There were those who wanted to utilize the same concept as you see in Israel about the one God. The Book of the Dead, by the time they got there, they had morphed into that the supernatural was only for the kings. So what did they do? They once again began to dominate the people, control them, that it's only the kings who can inherit eternal life, if you would. That sounds almost exactly the same, right? We're not just eternal, we have to inherit eternal life. We don't have it, in other words. If you don't get saved by Jesus, you go to nothingness. And depending on what kind of branch of 2,500 different Christian religions you go to, you can define what that nothingness means. Maybe that nothingness means hell, and maybe that nothingness means you just cease to exist in oblivion, and but it's not for us. We're not good enough. And I think any person who's honest enough to look at themselves will recognize, I don't care how long you were a Christian, you still were never good enough. At the end of 70 years, you're still just as horrible as you were at the beginning. And I talk to enough people who tell me that they've lived their whole life scared to death about going to hell. And most of them, when they're honest with you, they will tell you, but I never got good enough to not go to hell. Wow. How many lives have been destroyed because of that? People that have never fulfilled who they were, they never been the light that they were supposed to be, they never found it inside of themselves to be strong enough to just be and be okay with it. I am okay. No matter what you say, no matter what anybody else says, I am okay. And the first place you have to find that is in you before you can try to help other people find it in themselves. That's the whole beam and the splinter. And so the pyramid text marked the first written mention of the god Osiris, who would become the most important deity associated with the afterlife. So I was thinking this the other day, and I thought, well, this is really going to shake up a bunch of people. So can I tell you, according to the most ancient writings that we have, the very first god that ever existed was Osiris. I was taught my whole life that that's a pagan god and yada, yada, yada. Y'all know the story. And this god was god of the afterlife. And so the spells in the utterance of the pyramid text are primarily concerned with protecting the Pharaoh's remains, reanimating his body after death, and helping him ascend to heaven. That kind of sounds like the Bible, doesn't it? Right? We protect the remains. Well, how do we do that? We build them a nice, really expensive wood coffin, and we put them in it, and we take their blood so they don't stink, although 6 foot buried in the ground in a box. Nobody's going to know the difference anyways. So I don't really know what that's all about, but we do all of these rituals to preserve a body that's going to rot and turn to nothing. You got to stop and ask yourself, well, where did that come from? I just gave you the answer to why we do dead bodies 5,000 years later the way we do them. Do you know why we do dead bodies the way we do them? Because that's the way the Egyptians did them. See the correlation there? Now, we're a little warped on this end, so now we're starting to move into the new realm where the other half of them say, oh, well, let's just burn them to the cinder because none of it matters anyways. And you know what? If you're not waiting for Jesus to come back and pick all your pieces of ashes up from off the earth and put them all back together so you can once again live, then all of a sudden, what frickin' difference does it matter how your body's disposed of? Grind it up and use it in Soylent Green. It's okay. I got people shaking their head here too. It's just a joke. Lighten up a little bit. All right? We take these serious things too serious sometimes. And we need to take them serious, but you need to find some lightness in it, friends. So, these writings on the walls about the afterlife were spells, incantations, And of course, I know you were programmed in Christianity. Well, they cast spells, whether you know it or not. They have lots of rituals that they use in Christianity. If you've ever been in a Pentecostal church, you know that's true. So, anyways, with the reanimating of his body after death, and in helping him to ascend to heaven. So we have the preserving of the dead body, and we all, at this point, I hope, are mature enough to understand that the minute that your body dies, your spirit leaves and goes back to the Creator. Okay, that's what the scriptures tell us, and that's what modern New Age tells us, right? When you leave this body, if you have a near-death experience, you leave your body. And wasn't years ago with no Christianity and no religious that we have, those would have been important things. The spells delineate all of the ways the Pharaoh could travel, the use of stairs, ladders, and most importantly, flying. So the spells are there to tell us what the spirit realm looks like. They could also be used to call the gods to help, even threatening them if they did not comply. So the Pharaoh has the power by using a spell to call the gods to come and help me. I'm in distress. I haven't ascended, or I haven't flown yet, or whatever. And if you don't come like I tell you to, then I'll bring down the bigger gods on you. So I think that you can see that those things are are not what we're looking at. Part of what I wanted to do is just give that to you guys as a history, that there was a pattern that isn't as far-fetched as you might think from where we still are today, 5,000 years later. I thought this quite interesting, friends. Two of the main features of the Egyptian religious system for the dead say this. They are called the Ka and the Ba. Okay? The ancient Egyptians believed we consist of three basic parts. I thought this was so funny. The physical body, the Ka, and the Ba. All right? Let's see if we can find any Bible in here anywhere. The Ka is an individual life force, the element that makes a difference between life and death. So could you very quickly see that we have a physical body, and then we have something that's different than a physical body? We might call that the spirit man. And the Ka ultimately came, dig on this. It's so direct. The Ka functions ultimately came from the creator of the universe. And look at the purpose. To return to God at our death. Well, as soon as I read that, I went, now wait a second. And then in my mind, I immediately went over here to the Bible, and the scriptures clearly tell us that when a human dies, would you check on that, Mike? That when a human dies, that their spirit returns to God who gave it, is what the scripture says. So I now find that there's a 3,000 year disconnect of where they even got that picture. If this is the first recorded text, then you have to understand everything that they recorded predated Christianity. Where did Christianity, and then even really more so, where did Judaism get these thought processes that they even have? Where did we find out that when you die, your spirit, your Ka, returns to God who gave it? Where did we find that out? Where did the Jews learn that from? Did God come down and tell somebody, or did they read a text that was ancient at that time to them? And I contend with you, the country that they were driven out on their exodus that didn't happen is where they learned these things. So the Ka is an individual's life force, your spirit, the element that makes you different, the difference between life and death. So when that element is in you, you are a live human being, and when that element leaves, your body dies, but the spirit does not die. So I just laid for you a 5,000 year guarantee, friends, that for some strange unknown reason, there is a spirit force that is inside of us that when we die, our body stays here and decomposes, and our body goes back to the Creator. We could then, that opens the door for us now, we can spend time and we can go look and find out, well, what is the Creator? If El is not the Creator, and if Yahweh is not the Creator, then what the heck is? Maybe that's not valid to you, but to me that means everything. I want to know who the Father Yeshua is talking about that he's praying to is. I've struggled with people. I go, well, I call him the Creator Father. Well, I call him the Spirit Divine. And I do all of those things. But the bottom line is what is this thing that we emanate from? Don't we need to know that if we're going to truly have belief and faith in something? Wouldn't it be great for us to understand what we're believing in? I mean, I believed in Yahweh because the Bible told me Yahweh was the Creator. Now I find out he's not the Creator. In fact, he's one of the least of the gods, not even the most. They didn't even choose the greatest one. And it's weird because I find myself agreeing with Christianity. Yeah, all of this stuff isn't for us. Had the words been true, every one of those things were for us. That's a pretty huge step. So our Ka ultimately comes from the Creator and returns to God at death. And I thought, wow, we're sitting down here trying to put names on what we are and what happens, and they knew 5,000 years ago about the spirit of man. That's not something that was created in the Bible. Something that existed long before the Bible was ever even considered. For that matter, there probably were no people other than the Hyksos or the Shushan people, which were the first ones that have recorded as having Yeho, which isn't Yahweh, but most believe that that was the first mention of the God Yahweh 2,500 years after this. So for 2,500 years, this God, who was the great God, the Creator God, was unknown to the world. Does that even make sense to you? Doesn't to me. And so the Ka gives us that picture. That picture is relevant for today. And the Ba would be comparable to our idea of the soul or your personality. That makes each human being an individual. Well, what's funny is the new wave that we're in right now uses a term for some of you who are studying and trying to learn. You'll hear it constantly that we all are one. We all are one. And did you notice that the Ba doesn't go, it's the Ka that goes back to God. Why? Because it is our essence, our spirit, our force that all emanate from the same force system. And so, to be honest with you, what's being taught today exactly parallels with what that is, and the one that is out of the picture is Christianity. That's pretty huge, folks. We've come a long ways. And for those of you that are offended, I have no desire to offend you, but I'm not going to back up. I know what the Scripture says, and I also know that the truth that is coming out is capable of validating itself if you're willing to open your eyes and not hold on to your dogma. If you are, then Jesus is the Savior, and go get you a bite of meat and a drink of blood. If that's what you think will save you, by all means do it. I don't need that to be saved. If you do, then I guess you should do it. So, at death, the Ka is separated from the body in order for an individual to survive as a spirit in the afterlife, and the Ba has to be reunited to its Ka, its life force. Now, I think that we could probably contend that from at least from the things that we have, the knowledge that we have right now, because it seems quite strange. Although, on another aspect, it may very well, there may be a place for that. One of the things I find quite strange is people who have accessed the spirit realm, they keep saying the same things, that they had the same personality. So it wouldn't be all that surprising that the Egyptians 5,000 years ago had that piece wrong, and that we really don't lose our personality when we die. In fact, our personality, even though we're just a ball of energy, a ball of light, we're no longer physical bodies, which is exactly what Yahusha told us was the case, that there would be no male or female. Why did he say that? Because we don't have a physical body anymore. We're not like this. God isn't sitting on top of a huge throne like whoever wrote, I think in Psalms and other places, sitting on, God is this great God with a beard. Friends, that's a picture of El. That's exactly the picture that they paint of El. Go research who El is. He's a gray-bearded man sitting on a throne, high and lifted up above everybody. They're worshiping the god El. If that's true, David was an El worshiper, not a creator worshiper. And if that offends you, I apologize, but it doesn't change the reality. We can verify before Judaism existed that there was a God named El and what he looked like. We can verify, for those of you who are strung and hung on your Yahuwah, that he's the lesser son. In fact, sadly enough, he's the least son of the sons of El. So I wanted you to see that there's a pattern. Maybe we're not as, maybe what we call New Age is maybe not so new, friends. And that's really the piece that I hope that I've been successful in getting you to grab a hold of, is that the more that we come out from under, and it's really funny that the Naked Bible would be so paralleling this in the thought principles. If they're still doing it today, and you know they are, I've talked to enough of you, and you know as well as I do that the narrative that's going to be written about Donald Trump ain't going to be remotely close to what the truth was. They're going to make him some horrible person, and everything that guy did made this country a better place for us to live in. And everybody's crying about it now because of how horrible it is, and how much and how much and how much and how much. And I'm not talking about how much they made like it was under Trump. I'm talking about how much they don't have. And you see and hear that and feel that in every aspect of our life. And yet Donald Trump gave us a better America, and he's historically going to be written as the worst president that ever existed. So when Marl tells us, friends, I think if you want to know the truth, this is not coincidental. And if you've done any studying about the things that are coming out, this is the perfect example of what a synchronicity is. It's not accidental that Donald Trump was shot at and survived. It's not. It's not accidental that what he's trying to do yet again, and what he tried to do the first time, is being proven that what Morrow has shared with us about recorded history, they hate him. We can call it Trump derangement all you want to, but the truth of the matter is, friends, if these people are left in control and there is nothing to stop them, you're going to be nothing but a slave. If you want to see what it looks like to be in Exodus, if you were in the land of Goshen, you just let things keep going like they are. If you want to find out what it felt like to the Jews who went through the concentration camps, you just let what's going on right now continue to go on, and this country will be so corrupt, every one of us will be slaves. Oh, well, I don't believe that. Good. You don't have to, but when it happens, you then will believe. So what is important? What is important then is that we learn what the truth is, Because if we know the truth, Yeshua told us that if you know the truth inevitably will set you free. It's just crazy how much truth he went around and shared that's now becoming relevant, and it's not relevant to Christianity. I know they take him as their Messiah, and I know that they say that he's all about them and that they worship and they serve him. But first off, if you knew who he was, you would never worship and serve him. He told you in his own words, I did not come to be served, I came to serve. So serving him is a corruption of his very words in front of you. He wasn't what we've been told. Wow. Sometimes when I think about these things, and I think about them every day, pretty much all day long, it just takes my breath away at how huge. And maybe some of you are recognizing it, but have any of you had glimpses, flashes of reality that are popping to you, and there's things that you're starting to see on your own, and you're going, wow, that's not right, that's not true, that's not. And so if you are, then just understand that that is a gift. There is something happening, and people are spiritually becoming awake again. We've been programmed to be brain dead, and they've been really successful for whatever reason, and whether it will be successful or whether it will be squashed, that I don't have the answer for. But irregardless of that, the opportunity, while it still exists, for us to learn who we are and what we can become exists. And if you've known inside of you that you were worth more, then there's a reason for that. He doesn't hate us. He's not even mad at us. You're not going to go to Gehenna unless you do things that are worthy for you to be pitched outside of the city. So how about if we just focused on being the light that we were told we already were? That was the hidden secret, friends. When he said, I am, it pissed the Pharisees off to no end. This guy is telling people that humans don't need us anymore. And the truth is what he was doing is exposing the lie. Just exactly like Morrow is, just exactly like I am, Yeshua wasn't any different. He came to tell people the truth, to set the captive free, just exactly as he told us he did. And so I hope you guys will revel in that. I hope you will recognize that if you choose to accept it, the Father has the capacity, the universe has the capacity to cause us to be great no matter what happens. Maybe that greatness is that you die helping some people. If you really understand what life is all about, then it won't scare you anymore to die. But I do want to fulfill my purpose while I'm on this earth. And I hope that you understand that you have one as well. We've spent so much time just trying to get salvation and little time trying to fulfill our task. And so the message of the ages are how you took advantage of the time that you have while you're here. So I hope you guys will ponder on these things. I hope I've pricked you some. I hope I haven't angered you, but if I did, I apologize. But on the other side, if the truth angers you, then that's a dead giveaway to you that maybe you need to re-examine your truth. And so I hope that you guys will have a wonderful week. I hope that you will begin to practice mindfulness. There's about zero opportunity, although we all fail. So I'm already telling you that we all fail, where we act in a mindless way. The higher good is that we would eventually learn how not to act in a mindless way. No condemnation about that. Many will search for it, And many will find it, and many will not search for it, and I can guarantee you they won't find it. So, what quality of life, what your reality is based solely on what you're able to conceive in your mind and in your heart. And if you can't conceive yourself as being something, a positive force on the face of this earth, then I'm pretty sure you never will be. On the other side, if you can conceive that, this all goes with the prayer thing. I was pondering that again the other day, and I'm still not fully convinced that I kind of really brought across what I wanted. But folks, according to the way that what Yahusha said, we can have anything we want, but we have to believe that we have it before we'll get it. Let that sink into you this week. You can have anything that you want. And of course, if your heart is right and if your heart is pure, you're not going to want impure things. But you can have anything that you want, but you have to believe that you have it. That's what they call in the New Age term, that's what they call manifestation. It's the same thing that Christianity's trying to teach, but they don't teach the truth, so nobody gets there. They have to concoct stories like the preacher who preaches about prayer and supernatural healing and then quietly sends his wife overseas to Asia to have surgery so nobody in America knows that he sent her to have surgery. Why not just be honest and have surgery? Right? My shoulder hurt me for 3 years, and they cut the end of my bone off and screwed a titanium ball on there, and it's the best day of my life. Well, up to this point anyway. Maybe I'll have better days ahead. So, we're going to look, if any of you have a desire, we're going to look, because after this stage of religion, recorded history, the next oldest text that we have, and this is going to probably be quite shocking to you because it's exactly where Yahusha found himself. The next oldest religion, which is actually functioning relatively close to the same time, is Hinduism. And you'll be amazed at what the true hidden teachings of Hinduism actually are and how many of them correlate, not necessarily so much with the Bible, but correlate with what Yahusha taught. I don't have any doubts about where he was educated. So, shalom to each and every one of you. I hope that you will let your little light shine, and I hope that the universe will bless you with goodness and greatness, and that you will actually experience all that we collectively were created to be. Shalom.